Welcome, everyone. We're going to get started here. I'm here to present to you Finding Joy Through Everyday Art. And it's a workshop that I've put together to really share a little bit of my expertise and give you an opportunity to get to know me a little bit and also just get excited about making art because that's really what I'm passionate about. Here we go. If you don't know who I've been a crafter and an artist my whole life since I was a little teeny weeny thing. And then I had a couple of decades career in graphic design and then UX design. And most recently, I am on an endeavor to build an art coaching business, which includes both one-on-one coaching and group team coaching to help people really learn how to express themselves visually through art. I'm really passionate. So today's workshop or webinar is part of a three-part series. First one we did on January 4th, and we talked about making more art because finding joy is much easier when you're making lots of art. And today we're going to talk about hang-ups. What are those things that really stop you from making that art? And then we'll have our last webinar together on March 4th, and that will be all about noticing, so being present in the moment, figuring out how to pay attention to things, and I believe that that really helps slow you down so that you can make your best work. So last time we got together, we talked about making more art, and just to review that a little bit for us, why should we make more art? Some of the reasons I gave us were because it helps you be you. I think that many of us have this innate desire to create, to make, and there's something incredibly powerful about that. And it helps us really be more in our bodies and live out of that place, which is a very positive and lovely place in my experience to be. So I just encourage you for that. We can also make because it matters to us. I think a lot of us have skills to create things, and at one point we were interested in it, and we've sort of put that project away. But there is an opportunity to figure out why making matters to you, and I think that that is an individual thing for each person. So tapping into that, figuring out what that is, what motivates you, what makes you excited about things. Is it just to have fun? Because that is a perfectly lovely reason to make art. So figure out why it matters to you. And also make because it brings you joy. It's just something that brings so many people joy, and it's a really worthwhile endeavor. And then we talked a little bit about making messes if we're not sure what to do. So today we're going to talk about working around those hangups. How do we get through the things that really stop us from creating? We started talking about that a little bit last time and worked through some issues, but today we're going to get a little deeper into that. So I hear people say all kinds of stuff like, I'm not creative, or what's in my head just doesn't come out right. I don't have enough time. I don't know what to make, or I'm afraid of letting go. And you'll see here some things that translates to in my mind about purpose and passion and just having grace with ourselves, having confidence in ourselves, figuring out what our values are and slowing down and just embracing the mystery. So those are a lot of the things I try to do in my art coaching work to help people figure out how to make that space and time if that's something they really want to do. So today we're going to talk about making it easy. That is one way to get over hangups, is just make it easier. We all, I think, have been there knowing that, climbing up the big hill just isn't really working for us. It's time to just lower the bar a little bit. So here are some suggestions for you along those lines. I've got three for making it easy. First one is to create rituals. So when I say rituals, I mean tapping into your senses, having something very simple that gets you started. These are some Legos that I bought that are a whole box of the same colored Legos. And they make me so happy to just stick my hand in and touch and feel. I also often light a candle to get my senses awakened. I'll put on my favorite song. I'll make a cup of tea. So you're seeing I'm tapping into all of those different senses to help me be present in the moment. And that helps me slow down a little bit so that I can figure out what it is I want to make. That is sometimes something that stops us from creating because we're not sure what we want to do. Another way to make it as easy is to just lower your expectations. And I have this example here somewhere. Oh, here it is. There's a picture of it up there too. So this is my horribly ugly collage that I made to show myself that I can make the ugliest thing possible and then work my way up from there. So I just put the most random things I could find from around my desk, paper, things I've been saving for a long time, and I wrote the word resistance on it because often that resistance is stuck in me, and naming it and asking it to sit aside is a very helpful thing to get me started. So I have this little resistance collage hanging up in the corner of my art studio so that it's not in my way. Sometimes it gets thrown. I think last time I was chatting with somebody on the phone about it, I was like, yeah, that's in my bathtub because I pretty much threw that across the room. I didn't want that resistance to have any place in my work. So make your worst art first. And then you only have one way to go, and that's up from there. So use that as an exercise, a repeated thing that you can do, especially if you're getting stuck a lot. There is no perfect, that is not real. And in art, there is no good. Okay? Some people think they know what good art is, and other people have different perspectives about what good art is. That is a subjective thing. And so, based on your experience, your life experience, all of the things around you, where you grew up, your aesthetic, there's so many things that mean that your specific kind of art that you like is different than everyone else's. So, embrace that. You're the judge. And we're not going to bring our judge out anytime soon. That's something that comes way in the future. Another way to make it easy to is identify some simple projects. So this idea here is one that I got from an illustrator who would take a big red dot, and every time that he started sketching in the morning, he would draw that dot into a picture or an object. Every day it had to be something different and new. And so this is one way to give you kind of an exercise. It's something that you do every time when you get started, and it stretches your brain to push further and further in terms of coming up with new ideas. And that's always a helpful thing because creativity is like a muscle. And the more that you stretch it, the better it becomes. So make it easier next time by having a starting point. Okay. So I want you to just think for a minute about how you doing and making it easy. I think that's a tough thing. But hopefully some of those little bits helped inspire you. All right, next we have make often. And so this is really just about having a practice, showing up regularly, even if it's for 2 minutes. I was reading this book, Atomic Habits, or I was listening to a talk by James Clear, who wrote the book Atomic Habits. And he was talking about this guy who uh, lost 40 pounds and kept it off for a decade. How did he do it? Okay, well, he started off by literally driving to the gym every day, exercising for 2 minutes, and then going home, which sounds horrible to me. I would never want to do that. Um, but the cool thing is that helped him get into a habit of being somebody who exercises every day. So obviously he increased that time over the amount of time he was at the gym, over time, but he never missed his time at the gym because he had already built that habit of showing up every time. Also, just thinking about yourself as somebody who is a person who shows up at the gym every day. It's a lot easier to talk yourself into that when you can just say, hey, I'm going to show up to my art studio for 5 minutes, 2 minutes, 10 minutes, set a timer, just get going. All right. So I have 3 ways that we can make more often. And one of those ways is just starting with quick ideas. So that means sketching things out in my mind, oftentimes. So this is a project I was brainstorming for the other day. I wanted to make just a very simple embroidery. And I just wanted it to be something that I could pick up really easily. I wanted to have a pretty straightforward idea. And so you can see, pulled some inspiration from nature for one of my ideas. I was just looking at basic patterns for another one, thinking about lines and just basic shapes. And again, looking at like leaves and the patterns that happen there. What I ended up doing was this one here that is sort of like a top-down view of my neighborhood because I really love the woods and the lake that's behind my house. There's a preserve back there and I walk there all the time and it's just beautiful. And so reflecting on that space, thinking about that space and sort of making a little embroidery love letter to that space was the idea that I ended up using. And you can see I've started it here. Got it going. I'm just having fun. This is one of those really simple things I can pick up, set down, put it in my purse, bring it with me. And really to get started, I just came up with a bunch of quick sketches until I found one that I liked. I had more than this that I came up with, but just build that muscle again to stretch your brain a little bit. Looks like we're missing a picture here. Sorry about that. This one, let's see if I can get this. Yeah. So here's the picture here. Make it small. Make it something that if you want to make often and you're having trouble getting started, sometimes just having it be a very small thing can help you get going. So these two images at the top here are ones that I have used when I was making a painting and then I had a little bit of extra paint and I just kind of smudged it all over the front of a card that then I'm going to pick up later and add a bunch of other layers too. So I use excess paint to paint on cards because cards are a really super easy thing because they're small. So again, I can repurpose a lot of things that maybe I made a big background. Like I have these actually, that one right here that I cut that out. The one on the bottom left I cut out. So I had this big collage that I made for an art show and repurposed it for another art show. And then finally was like, okay, it's time for this to get cut up into smaller pieces. Part of it I'm going to use for some more collage art. And then I cut a small one out here to put on the bottom left, you'll see there on a card. And that is a way for me to just kind of reuse things, but also like lower the bar for what I'm creating and just see what I can do with what I have. The one on the bottom right here is one where I've sort of pieced together some different pieces of paper from different times where I was illustrating. And and I don't like that one yet. I'm just gonna keep layering on top of it. There's no harm in what I've done there. One more way that you can play often or that you can make often is to play. Just have a little bit of fun with it. So a good friend of mine that I was art coaching was doing a big piece on the ocean and she wanted to do the bottom of the ocean. And we were talking about different ocean objects that might give her inspiration. And she said jellyfish tentacles. And I love that prompt. It's pretty much my favorite prompt ever. So if you were going to make jellyfish tentacles, could you think of 5 different ways you could play with that idea? So here are 3. One is getting kind of a netting material and laying that over top. And, maybe you have something that you paint and you sort of lay that paper over top of the netting. So that could be one way to illustrate jellyfish tentacles. Another could be to literally use the thickness of the paint and squeeze it out on the paper in a way that gives it some body and some thickness to get that jellyfish tentacle effect. Another might just be, pulling in different types of materials. Like this is a cool yarn that's pretty asymmetric there, but gives a really cool feel. And so I might try to make jellyfish or jellyfish tentacles using lots of different mediums and lots of different effects instead of like thinking I have only one way to do it and then I have to do it perfect and get it done right away. Instead, take a break when you start to feel like, ooh, I don't know what to put on the page, and come up with an exercise that can help you really stretch and grow right in the middle there. So how you doing at making often? Is that something that you've got a good practice for? And if so, I'd love to see in the comments what it is that you've got going that is helping you make often, and how you're making that a priority. So I'd love to hear your other hangups. Again, chat with me, send them to me, send them my way. I'd love to keep addressing these kinds of things. This is something I do in my one-on-one coaching. We have a whole month that we talk about where I do a coaching session on, general hangups that people have and some of the ways that, I work through those things. And then I work with individuals on my one-on-one coaching to help figure out how can we move past the specific ones that you have. So I believe that we are capable of anything we set our minds to, so it's just a matter of breaking it down enough to make it great. That's what I have today for working around hangups. I hope that this brings you joy and that you find more art space in your life. And I hope that you'll join me on March 4th for the practices of noticing. We'll be on Zoom again at 7:30 Eastern. So see you then. Thanks.